Hey friends, Christy here with Little Roots Ranch, and today I wanted to talk about what were the 10 hardest crops for me to grow in 2022. I think basically everything on the list is hard for me every year, meaning that they're not super easy or my natural approach to gardening slash farming creates some of them. But nonetheless, here's my list. If you want to share, obviously go ahead and put your top 10 or down below, and we could all compare and contrast. But anyways, so starting off, my number one is cabbage. Oh, I struggle so hard with growing cabbage. I grow what looks like beautiful cabbage. Big head, beautiful color, great foliage. But what I always have is when I harvest the cabbage and I start taking, I rip a couple of the outer leaves off to, just to, clean it up a little bit. And underneath, I always get like these little slugs. And then of course, slug droppings, which is just terrible, and it just drives me insane. And so even if I continue to strip it down, they're like teeny little things, and like I'll eat that, but they're not good for sale. So I've been in the process of making my garden plan for next year, which I'll share soon. But I actually did cut cabbage out. I am growing Chinese cabbage or Napa cabbage, but I'm not growing regular cabbage because I just have so much of a problem with it. Last year I got real close to using Sluggo, especially with the long spring, and I was like, just a few little pieces. But I did not use it. And I just, I think that if I were to use like a Sluggo or something like that, I think that it would really take care of the problem, and I would have all these big, beautiful cabbage heads. But for me personally, obviously everyone can do what they want, but for me personally, I don't. And so I think I'm just like, well, maybe that's something that I'm not going to grow. I didn't have the same problem with my Chinese cabbage, and I really enjoyed using it like stir fries and stuff. It has a little bit of a slightly higher water content, good and bad. But other than that, I think that kind of might be a trade out I can use. Maybe later down the road, I'll figure it out, or I'll create like some pen where ducks live 9 months of the year, and I'll grow a special cabbage area and they will eat every slug imaginable, and I'll put like copper tape around it or something. But for right now, I struggle with it. So moving along, number 2 is cauliflower. Now, cauliflower is one of my absolute favorite, but I will tell you that I am so bad at getting to the cauliflower on the perfect day. Either I don't try to buy the self-blanching ones, which are ones because so what happens with cauliflower is when the sun hits them, they just turn like a tannish, brownish. Now, this has zero to do with taste or health or anything like that. It's just a natural reaction to the sun. However, in the world of markets, everyone likes their cauliflower to be white beyond white. And so if you don't know how you accomplish that is by tying all of the leaves, well, not all of them, but a few of the leaves shut. And so that way it blocks the sun from the cauliflower. It also kills the leaves because they don't like to be tied up like that. But then it's also hard to check, like when your cauliflower gets full size, and then I find that when you tie it up, the slugs like to get in there more, and nothing ruins a beautiful head of cauliflower like little slugs eating the like rice looking florets. But so I don't really do that. And then I've tried in the past, but either way, I always miss it. And when I get to my cauliflower, it started to separate and open it up. And again, I'll still eat it like that, but it's not good for sale. And no one wants to buy that it's fine, but no one wants to buy it. So I think I'm also going to cut that out of next year's rotation. One of my favorite things to grow for myself, and I'm not picky, but everybody else is. So, but that's something that I struggle with. So if you get cabbage that separates a little bit or starts to bloom, or you feel like you were just there yesterday and now it's like going to seed and separating, it's okay. I struggle with that too. Number 3 and 4, I put together because I have the same problem. So I thought I heard something. the same problem with it is the radishes and turnips. And I cannot grow either in the summer or the fall. And I've learned that. In the spring, I do fine because the cabbage moth isn't out yet. It's that white butterfly. It's actually a moth, but that white butterfly that flies around with the two black dots or one black dot on each wing. So that kind of causes me a lot of problems, and he loves brassicas. And so I always have problems with that in the cabbage and the caterpillar or the maggots. And so and the slugs. And so I get like they eat all around the radishes and stuff. So I'm actually this year going to try something different. I've heard from other farmers that what you have to do is start the seeds like from the second you put them down to have them under netting. And I haven't really liked the idea of that because I really like a natural approach. But then it does render me turnip and radishless for, all of summer and fall. And so I think I might give it a try and see how it works. And that'll help me to better identify the pest as well. So fingers crossed if that works. If you're having, again, for personal use, a lot of this stuff isn't a big deal. I would never think twice. One of the fundamentals of my farm is that, and my gardening and all of that, how I eat and stuff like that is a saying that's really important to me. And it says, you shouldn't be the only one willing to eat your food. And what I mean by that is the produce that is absolutely perfect without not a sign of a nibble or anything like that. There's usually a reason, right? And so if your garden isn't participating in the ecosystem, I guess this would be more for farming. I don't know how many gardeners are using lots of pesticides and stuff like that, but that's a good way to keep bugs off of your crops and stuff. But I don't want to eat something that the bugs don't want to eat, like that. It doesn't seem linear to me. And so when I have radishes or whatever, and they have like a little hole in the side where a slug had sampled a drop of the radish or whatever, I just shrug and move along. But from to sell produce to the public, of course, they're not as accepting. And so I am definitely always trying to work on sharing that knowledge and, be sharing information and having people be more connected to food and understanding, the food waste or the pesticides that go into producing perfect produce. But that's another topic for another time. So yes, radishes and turnips, they grow great in the spring for me, but really a struggle for the summer and the fall. The roots just get damaged. And so I am going to try this coming year under a net, and we'll see how that works. Number 5 are spring greens. So this includes not necessarily lettuce, but all of my Asian greens and just greens in general, like arugula or my mustard greens, whatever. I struggle so much, and I know that this is a common thing. So if this is something that you've experienced or going into the coming season, if you're a new gardener, if you start to see it, don't feel bad. But things that bolt, and a lot of times it's as the temperatures are changing, the days are getting longer, the temperature is getting warmer, the evening temperature. If you're going in a greenhouse, the greenhouse gets a lot warmer and not consistent with the temperature around it. And so that creates, all of those things create perfect opportunities for little plants, especially the greens are fairly delicate in that, I want to grow them because I want to eat them because they're beautiful. Or tasty, I mean. But what they're growing for is they want to reproduce and continue their species. And so they're like, oh, it looks like it's getting pretty close, or that the environment is seeming, satisfactory. And so then they're just going to want to do that. And obviously that's not a good thing. The flavor does change and stuff like that. But so if you struggle in the early spring especially with the amount of starts that I start, with things bolting or going to seed, or getting a little more bitter tasting as an early level of that, no worries, I have that too. For number 6 is summer lettuce. So summer lettuce, in the spring, I always feel like lettuce just grows out of the ground. Like it's so easy to grow, it's everywhere, it's perfect. And then in the summer, I feel like the little ones take forever to get started and the bigger ones just want to bolt. And obviously I overcompensate with that by planting a bunch of lettuce, and that way I'm always in lettuce, because lettuce is something that's popular every single week, or every single day or whatever. In my CSA, lettuce is the only thing that I provide every single week. Other than that, the other varieties alternate. But so that's something that I struggle with, is that even if it looks beautiful, it might have that bitter taste. And so I'll do the soaking and stuff like that. But watering every day is key. Watering is great when you're not crazy busy. And so as we all know, it's hard to get out there every day with a hose or a sprinkler or irrigation system unless you have your setup automatically. I don't. So that's a struggle for me every year, but it works out, but it just takes extra time and extra work and a backup plan. Number 7 are peas. So I can grow peas really well. My problem is between day 0 and day, 14 of pea growing. I don't know what it is. I always struggle with peas. Either, I don't know if it's like birds or like mice or rabbits. I think rabbits are a big one. But everything loves to eat my peas. So this year I did something different, and I started the peas in gutters, which I thought I invented, but you guys let me know that other people do that too. But I thought I invented it and I was a genius. And so I started them in that and then transplanted it. And I think it stunted the plants just a teensy bit. But I did have plants to enjoy. So at the end, a win. But that was something that I've always struggled with. And I think peas, one, they're absolutely delicious. And all of the animals and insects and rodents and birds and all that stuff know it too. So that's something that I always struggle with. I think it was my 3rd germination till it took. And I picked them up off the ground and had them in the greenhouse till I could get them all the way. Number 8 are carrots. Oh, I was like, why did I say carrots? Carrots grow really well for me. December planted. So here's something interesting that I've noticed about the weather. So in all my years of gardening, from the very first year, which I actually did it, I would have never tried it if I knew anything. And so luckily I was young and dumb. And so what I did was I planted carrots in December, which actually this is the first week of December and the ground's frozen, and nobody would be like, right now sounds like a perfect time to plant carrots. Well, I'll tell you what, I was young and dumb, and so I was, wanted to try. And so I planted carrots in December because that sounded right to have spring carrots. And I'll be darned, it worked. And I had beautiful carrots in the early spring, and they were so delicious, and I loved it. And this was more when I was like smaller gardener versus farmer. And so I've always continued that, because even though everyone's like, no, don't plant carrots in December, but it worked. If it worked, why mess with it? Well, starting 2 years ago, which is the first time we had the really cold winter, my carrots, 100% of them that were December planted, all went to flower, bolted, whatever. And of course, when it does that, it gets that thick like core through the carrot. Like it's not an edible carrot once it does that. Beautiful flower is great for beneficial insects, but not for sale or for human consumption. And I was so bummed. So I did it last year. Oh, now I'm getting all my years confused. Yeah, I did it last year in December and planted the carrots. And same thing happened. So now we've been having these really cold winters, very cold in the Western Pacific Northwest. And so I think that little trick that I used to do is kind of out the window. So I don't know. My next thing I'm going to try, I heard from another fellow farmer up north. He said that he starts his carrots. He does carrots, beets. I'm also going to add kohlrabi to this. He said in February, there's always, or was it January? I think it was late January, early February, that there's a week, because it's right when you're getting out of the Persephone period, where getting close to where there's more than 10 hours of light in a day, which is really important for growing crops or anything. And that he gets all of his seeds out, and that usually they make it. So I'm going to try that. So I've got my areas ready, and if we get a a break in the cold weather at all in late January, December, I'm going to put my carrot seeds down, my beet seeds down, and I'm also putting kohlrabi just because I have a lot and for a trial. So anyways, December planted carrots, I think with our new trend of having really cold winters, is a thing of the past, and I've struggled with those. They go to seed. I do enjoy the seed, but not for its initial purpose. Number 9, almost done, is rabe. So I have struggled. I love the idea of harvesting multiple times off of one crop. It feels better. It helps the price, obviously, from just having one and done. And, like regular broccoli and all the brassicas basically sit in the field for so long and getting eaten by slugs and caterpillars and all those things. And so the idea of rabe really appealed to me, and I could not get it to grow for anything. I would get these teeny little spindly plants that would just go to seed so fast, or they were really small, and I was like, I don't know, it's gonna take a lot of these to make a bundle. And so I tried last year. Did I start last year? Yeah, the sweet stem from Johnny's, which is a sprouting broccoli. And I was really impressed by that. It gives like an okay size, I mean, not broccoli size, but an okay size, like initial head, and whether you cut it or not. And then it just gives generous side shoots and stuff like that. And so I really enjoyed that. But so I've switched over now to the sprouting broccoli. But the broccoli rabe or whatever, it's too fast for me. And I just have struggled with that. So I've taken that out of the roster. And last but not least are parsnips. And, the thing is, I'm not sure that it's actually parsnips themselves. I think it's just been the situation that I've had. So the first planting of parsnips I just told you about the carrots in December that I used to always do. Well, I did that with parsnips as well. And so, like everything, they went to seed right away as soon as we had our first day because it was too cold, and they flower biannually, which means after 2 seasons, which could be, if anytime it's warm, really cold, warm, even though it's the same year or whatever. And so those went straight to flowering, and I was like, and then I planted some in the front garden, and I've been having a lot of problems with the front garden. I am waiting for results back. I did get a soil sample, and I also did the mason jar shake test, which I wanted to show you that compared. It's actually pretty accurate, but I'll do that in another video. But I've gotten my soil tested, and I'm thinking it's going to come back low calcium, acidic, and very high in clay. And so I am going to try and see what their recommendations are for amendments and stuff like that. But I'm hoping to make a better thing. In the meanwhile, just as a super side note, in the meanwhile, what I think I'm going to do is focus more on flowers in the front because they're a little more forgiving, and then also doing my no-dig potatoes up there because it doesn't matter what the ground is. I basically put the seed potato, cover in some compost, and then put a bunch of straw, and then just move it to the side to harvest. It's really great. I love that method. So that's kind of next year's plans. But the parsnips where I had them, I just haven't done well. I think if I put some parsnips in the back gardens, which are the better growing area I found out this year, I think that they would do just fine. But I'm talking about things that didn't do well for me in 2022, and that was parsnips. So I'm hoping for next year I have on the roster parsnips for in the back, and so they should do better. But anyways, thank you for watching if you've made it this far. I just wanted to go over the 10 things that were hardest for me to grow in 2022. I would definitely love to hear what you guys struggled with, just because, it's always great to learn from each other. But thank you for watching, and happy gardening. Bye.